Hi, I'm CJ. I hope my YouTube channel, 5 Minute Christianity, is truly a blessing to you. Just want to call attention to one little thing. At the beginning of each video, I try to include the name of the sermon from which it came, so that you can go back later and watch the entire sermon when you have time. That's all. Thanks.
Now the deeds of the flesh are evident, which are... Now let me stop for just a moment there. He's going to give you a list of things that come from the flesh. Okay? They are these: immorality, impurity, sensuality. Those three things have to do with sex, sexual behavior. The term immorality is porneia, illicit sex, fornication. The term impurity is akatharsia, which means uncleanness. It's the filth of mind. It's the pornographic mind that leads to the pornographic conduct. The third term is sensuality. We often translate that in the past lasciviousness. It's living without restraint, living for pleasure with no restraint. So here's the deeds of the flesh. Now follow this. Here's a person who is immoral in conduct, a fornicator, sexually involved. A person who's impure in mind, who's got some kind of a pornographic addiction, who's stimulated by dirty magazines, dirty books, dirty movies. A person who is wanton or lascivious or sensual is one who goes so far in lust that they could care less what anybody thinks. We could say this is the person with the sexual addiction, to use a contemporary term. What produces sexual addiction? Fouled up relationship with your mother? Messed up relationship with your father? Lack of self-esteem? What produces sexual addiction? The flesh. The flesh. That's what it says. Furthermore, there's another category. That's the category of self-effort in religion. Verse 20. Here's some more deeds of the flesh. Idolatry. That's as much a work of the flesh as immorality, by the way. It means worshiping anything other than the true God. Some people worship a false god. Some people worship in a false religious system. Some people worship themselves. Some people worship their money, their career, their prestige, their house, their car, whatever it is, any kind of false god. Sorcery, that's the word pharmakeia, from which we get pharmacy. It means drugs. And since drugs were used as the common medium in the practice of magic and sorcery, and since regularly in occult practices people took drugs, the word came to include all kinds of sorcery and witchcraft, but its root idea is drugs. Then you have another category, the category of human relationships. And what does the flesh produce in human relationships? The word is enmities or hatred. It means hostile hatred. Strife, fighting, quarreling. Jealousy, that is the anger which is produced when somebody has what you want. Outbursts of anger, literally hostile outbursts. Uncontrolled temper tantrums. Disputes. Dissensions, factions, that's chaos, conflict of different kinds. So you have sex, religion, and relationships dealt with, and finally even drink. In verse 21, after the word envying, which is another form of inability to get along with people, is drunkenness and carousing. That means public orgies. And then finally, things like these. Now listen to what I say, because this is going to tie it all up. We have a lot of people in this world with problems, right? He says, here is what the flesh produces. And I'll tell you right now, you'll find everybody's problem here. People say, oh, I have a problem with compulsive sexual behavior. Oh, that's right here. Immorality, impurity, sensuality. Oh, I have a problem focusing on objects. You know, I've got all kinds of idols and I'm distracted. That's here. Idolatry. I have a drug problem. That's here too. Pharmakeia. You got a drug problem? That's here. You have bitterness, hate. You have conflict in your home, conflict in your marriage. You don't get along with your mother. You don't get along with your father. You don't think people love you. You have all kinds of problems like that. You feel jealous toward other people. You feel unfulfilled. You have a temper. You burst out. You have a drinking problem, you drink too much, you envy other people, you're discontent, unhappy. You look at other people's physical body and you don't like the way yours looks, so you're anorexia, or you're anorexic or bulimic, or what. You can put it all in here, folks. It's all the flesh. One way or another. And this isn't an exhaustive list. That's why at the end he says things like these. Now listen carefully. If this is what the flesh produces, then how do we overcome it? By human effort? By psychology? By therapy? By what? By walking what? In the Spirit. You do not solve human problems on a human plane. In fact, he says, just to put this category totally together, verse 21, I forewarn you, just as I have forewarned you before, implied that those who practice such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Those who continually keep on doing these things. In other words, these are patterns of an unregenerate person. And if they are the unbroken patterns of your life, then you're not a Christian. I told you about a young man in the hospital that came to Christ a few days before he died of AIDS. He said to me when he was 8 years old, he made a profession of faith in Jesus. He supposedly asked Jesus into his heart. People assured him all his life he was a Christian, but he said, I've lived 23 years in uninterrupted homosexuality. I'm dying of AIDS. I know my life has never been transformed, and I know I'm going to hell, and I'm not prepared to meet God. And he knew